Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Cleo. Today I will be sharing with you this newly launched case coming from Lian, known as the Lancool 216. I've been anticipating this case for a very long time. First, because of the look. Second, because of its modularity. Before I begin, I'd like to congrats Lian to have launched this case and to provide this case for me to share with my viewers. Now, there will be three parts of this case itself. In this video, I will talk about the exterior, the interior, the modularity. The second part is more about fixing a PC into this case itself. And third will be more on the airflow and the temperature performance of this case. So if you guys are new to my channel, welcome. Do remember to subscribe, and if you do not wish to miss out the next few videos, kindly hit on the notification bell button. Let's begin. I will first start off with the variant of this case. There are two types. One is the non-Argb, other is the Argb. Now, I'll start off with the non-Argb. It only comes with color black, and as you can see at the front, right, these are the highlight of this case itself, which is the 160mm fan, two of which. Now, for the non-Argb version, right, these fans will not be having any lighting effect. And at the rear, it will be providing you a 140mm fan. And as for the front I/O, right, as you can see at the top over here, this is meant for Argb. So if you are purchasing a non-Argb, right, all your front I/O controllers, like the switch and everything, will be at the top, and you won't have this, and this will be blackout, as in like blank. Now, for the Argb version, it's different, more enhancement, more, I should say, Argb goodness. First off, you will be having the either a black or white case. And for the front fans, right, as mentioned, these are the highlights, which is 160mm fans. They are both Argb. And it comes with an additional Argb controller, which is this, you can see over here. And the front I/O will be at the side. Now, as for the rear, right, it's similar to the non-Argb, which is having just a normal 140mm fan. As I swivel around the case itself, just to show you the exterior, the front is in fact all mesh with all these holes over here. And at the top, partial mesh, which is the center part, as you can see. The pattern of the mesh starts from the end all the way continuously to the front. And at this back, where you, if I were to take this out, right, where you see all the cable management, this is just a metal cover. This is the rear itself, whereby this able to hold a 140mm fan or a 120mm fan. This is the I/O cutout. And there are a total of 7 expansion slots, as this is a mini tower case, and more ventilation hole. Below, this is your PSU cutout, where you place your PSU. And over at this end, this is the tempered glass itself. And at the bottom panel, another mesh panel, just like the Lancool 3. So they have actually added this for more intake of air. For the measurement of this case itself, the width from the back all the way to the front, this is at 481mm in length. And from the top to the bottom of the feet itself, this is 492. If you don't consider the feet, which is from here to the top, this is at 480. Now, for the front width itself, from here to here, is 235. Now, to show you how to remove all the panels and such is pretty simple. Now, for the front bezel, right, no strength is needed. Just from the bottom, oh, see, it's easily taken out. And this is the mesh front with the logo. Now, as for the side panel itself, you will need to remove off this thumb screw. And this is one thing that I like, where Lian have designed this for you to remove. While you're removing this, please make sure that you hold on the glass. See, you just pop off and you can just remove. And at the bottom, right, as you can see, there are 3 catch over here to catch on the case itself, so that you can align it, place it, see, it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't shake, and you pop it back in. Now, as for the other side, which is similar function, this without a thumb screw, so you can just pull it out. And same, where you have the bottom catch, or should I say the catch, to catch onto the case itself. Then as for the top, all is needed is to remove this two thumb screw and you can remove. Now, something I forget to mention, all these thumb screws are captive, so it will not drop. Same goes to the side panel. Oh, not this. The tempered glass, you have this. All captive thumb screws so that you will not drop. This is how the interior look like, but before I show you the interior, let me just swivel this down. As I mentioned to you, this side panel here, or should I say the bottom panel, you can just remove it. Now, in order to remove this panel, right, there is a screw for it, which is this. I've taken out, which is located over here. So once this is removed, right, you can just pull the side panel. And to put it back, right, as you can see at the bottom of this panel here, there are catch over here. So you catch to the case again and to put it back. So this is how it functions. I'll just leave this out. Now, another good point about this case itself, right, it gives you more space. As you can see at the top over here, I have removed two screws, which is located over here and here. Now, do take note that these screws over here, right, they are not captive, so do not lose them. Same goes to the bottom panel where you have this screw to screw on. Do not lose this. Now, back to what I've said, you can totally remove the top where you can mount your fan, your radiator and such. These are all the guiding slots. So this is how it looks like. Back to the interior itself. First off, I would like to mention about the cutouts, the EPS cutout, the fan cutouts, and even the motherboard cutout, inclusive of the bottom section where you place all your front I/O cable to your motherboard, your USB connection and your audio connection. Now, as I glide my fingers along the cutouts, right, I won't get myself cut. Well done, Lian. This case enables you to mount a ATX motherboard, an M-ATX motherboard, a ITX motherboard, and even a E-ATX motherboard. Now, the rubber grommets over here, right, if you were to fit a E-ATX and it's blocking the cables itself, you can dismantle this tray here, which is fastened by 3 screws, which is over here, here, and here. I've taken off 2 screws. Now, take note, when you take off these 2 screws, right, the 3 screws, do not lose them. So, having to say, if there's a blockage, you can remove this tray. I dropped the screw, no worries. So you can flip this tray this way and to mount it back. So if you do this right, you give a wider opening where you can fit your cables on an E-ATX motherboard. Looking at the bottom over here, there are 2 trays over here which is removable, and they are fastened onto the case itself by 4 screw holes over here, and these are the screws. I've taken it off. Make sure again, do not miss these screws or lose these screws. Now you can remove this if you intend to put 220mm fans at the bottom, or due to the arrangement of the motherboard itself, right, for ATX itself, you can lift the motherboard up, which I will show you later, based on the back bracket over here, which can be swapped. It's like flip. So if space is allowed, right, you can even place 240mm at the bottom to draw air in. Now on the tray itself, right, as you can see, there are mounting for you to place your SSD. And of course, this is not mounted. These are the grommets that is provided in the accessory package, which is this. So you need to slot this in. So when you have done all the rubber grommets, right, then you can place your SSD on the rubber grommet, turn over, and to screw in the screws at the beneath. I mean at the bottom. So this is how it looks like. Now speaking of which, right, this brackets here, in fact, if you to take note, right, there are threads over here, or should I say there are screw holes over here. What are they for? In the accessory package itself, right, they have this. This is for you to mount your riser cable. So as you know that you buy the GPU riser cable itself, right, you have a gap, I'll show you later, so that you can vertically mount your GPU. Just to illustrate that, I mounted the tray back and the two standoffs for the riser itself. This is what I meant. So as you can see, the riser itself, right, there are two slots over here. So this is for you to mount it over here, so that you can do your vertical mount on your GPU itself. Now, besides this, right, before you mount the vertical mount, you will have to orientate the back slot over here. So in order to flip, instead of horizontal mount, unscrew these 4 screws here, and also to the 2 back screws. When you're unscrewing this, right, make sure your fingers is supporting the bracket so that it will not drop off. So once you have removed this, right, swivel to the front. Let me just zoom up. So from here, right, you can remove this. As mentioned to you, remove this, flip this way. Then you can slot this back, so that this allows you to do vertical mount on your GPU. And of course, not forgetting, make sure that you screw back all the screws to hold the bracket itself. This is how it looks like when I mount the GPU vertically. Now, make sure you have mounted everything as in the riser card, and to flip this to be vertical orientation before you mount the card. And when you're mounting the card, right, you will need to take this rear fan itself, because the rear fan is quite near to the PCIe slot, and your screwdriver can't reach to tighten the GPU onto the slot itself. So make sure you remove this, then do the screws on the graphic card to the slot itself. And of course, when you're doing vertical mount, right, you'll be sacrificing quite a number of PCIe slots if you intend to slot like capture card and so. So if you do this, right, you can't do that. And another thing I like to talk about is the length of this graphic card. Now, as you can see, this case itself, right, it allows you to mount tough or strict, not a problem. I believe strict is about 400mm or 420, around there. For this card here, it's actually a tough card from ASUS, and it's 320mm. And if you do ask me, can it mount a 4090 card? Well, I don't have a 4090 card, but Lian have actually done a brilliant checklist. You can check. I will leave the URL in my description. That will allow you to tell you whether you can fit a 4090 to this case, or to the various cases like O11D Mini, to the Lancool 3 or Lancool 2. So they have this checklist, so do check it out. Another area where you have to take note when you're doing vertical mount, as mentioned, you have sacrificed all the PCIe slot for capture card or so. Now, if you're doing this, right, you will be able to put SSD beneath, but it's going to run warm. The reason being, right, your graphic card is dissipating heat from the top, from the bottom. So take note on this. And if you're thinking of placing fans below, right, you will not be able to, because of this, the frame on the riser itself, the standoff, is blocking. I mean, you can place the fans, not an issue if it's a 120mm fan, but you will need to offset it and probably use cable tie to tie the fan to your bottom cage. But I wouldn't do that way, reason being, even if you're able to fit the fans, right, the grooves over here, I mean the slots at the bottom, when the air is pulling in, right, it's just like when you whistle, when your lip is narrow, right, as wind pass through, right, you will give noise. So same theory, or should I say the same practice if you to put fans below, okay, forcing 2 fans below, No, in fact it's one fan. You can't fit it over here. Yep. So if you do force to put a 120mm fan over here, right, be prepared to listen to noise. The next area I want to talk about, in fact, is the ATX or the E-ATX motherboard. Now, as you know that when you slot into a motherboard itself, right, I mean, in the case itself, right, you will only be able to slot according to the standoffs. So this case have a very unique mechanism whereby you can fit it this way, or you can lift up the whole motherboard up by doing some adjustment. Let me just show you. Now, first thing, right, the standoffs, if I'm to zoom in, as you can see, the standoff over here, it says down or up. So you will need, if let's say you're lifting the whole motherboard up, you will need to unscrew all the standoffs. So all the standoffs on the motherboard itself, okay, all the standoffs, and to follow the arrow saying up, so you move this up. And next thing you will need to do is at the side over here where the rear I/O, right, as you know, if you to leave it upright, this is going to block at the top. So this whole piece here, in fact, you can remove off. Just going to show you. And it's removed by 4 screws. 1, 2, and at the back, this inside, 3 and 4. I've already taken 3 out. Make sure you don't lose these screws again. Then I'm going to show you. Okay, as you can see over here, right, the bracket over here. See? A big pavement over here, so when you move up your motherboard, right, this will hit it. So in order to do the changes, unscrew this. You can remove the whole I/O tray, flip it over, then place it back, and of course screw it in. So once you screw in, right, take a look at the back. See, this section here become the bottom instead of the top. So you have more, you are allowed to move your motherboard to flush the back I/O plate. A very brilliant idea. This is how the normal ATX motherboard mounted on most cases, whereby you have the original position. And at the bottom, right, as mentioned, you can mount 220mm fans. Make sure you take out these 2 covers, so it's without an issue. But if you were to place 240mm, which is like this, you might be able to place, not a problem. But the problem is you might hit to some of the cables that's connecting to the motherboard, which is the front I/O, the USB connector, and the audio cable. So take note on this. Another illustration, as mentioned, the bottom you're able to mount 220mm fans. If this is lifted up, right, you can mount 240mm. There will be enough clearance. And at the top, with this original mounting, I can place a 360 I/O. See, it fits nicely. No problem. There's no obstacle to block your motherboard, VRMs, and the rear I/O. Now I'm going to switch position and to lift up the motherboard and to show you. With the motherboard lifted up, as you can see over here, there are more clearance at the bottom, whereby if you were to fit a 140mm fan, 2 of which, you can see that all the connection point will be up, and you can connect those connection points like the audio cable, the USB cable, and the front I/O cables without any obstacle. Now, at the top itself, you might be wondering, am I able to mount the 360 I/O since I lift this up? And your worries will be the VRM over here, the heatsink, and the rear VRM heatsink. Now, for anything that's taller than this gap over here, right, the rear I/O plate, anything that's taller, you might have a problem. But if it is this flush, right, the I/O plate, the line over here, if it is flush, you should not have any problem. Same goes to your VRM on the side. Let me just show you. This is a 360 AIO. See, it fitted in nicely without any blockage or such. Do pardon me, I've not mentioned about this. This is meant for the air cooler if you are intending not to go with the liquid AIO route. For air coolers, make sure your height is not more than 180.5 millimeters. My recommendation will be around 170 to 175 millimeter tall. This is the top section of the case itself, where you can see this is my radiator. If you choose not to put a radiator and to place fans, you can put 3 120mm fans, not an issue, or 2 140mm fans. And if you are placing 2 140mm fans, right, there might be gaps over here. So when the air goes from the front, right, it might just leak out from the top. So Lian have actually provided you with this. This is in fact the bracket that comes with the accessory package, where you can screw this in place. This will block off any air that's moving out, and you will channel from the front to your rear. Besides this, right, they have done another beautiful thing whereby they have this routing point here. These are meant for your fan cables or your Argb cables of your top fans or your radiator fans to route through here and to pass through here. Same goes to the back. So it's well thought of. Next thing I'm going to show you is going to swivel to the back. Now, as for the bottom itself, right, there's this mesh here. This is whereby you place your PSU over here, where it sucks in all the cool air and to exhaust from the back. Speaking of which, right, let me just push back to the top. Do take note that at the top over here, right, there are no mesh filter. So take note on this. But anyway, most of the time this part here is exhausting hot air from the case itself, so you do not need the filter. Before I show you the rear of the cable management and all the Velcro stripes and such, now take a look at the back over here. There is some additional function whereby if you place your vertical mount GPU or even horizontal mount, right, Lian have provided this additional bracket for you to mount a 120mm fan and to place it over here. This is to add either additional exhaust or cool air blowing to the graphic card itself. So probably I will experiment this, as this will be tested on my third video or part 3. Now coming to the cable management itself, I will first start off with the top section of the case itself, then I will talk about the lower section. Now at the top over here, right, where the cable management is, the first thing you will see is this fan and Argb hub. This will only be provided if you purchase a Argb 216 case. If you purchase a non-Argb, right, this does not come with it. Now next thing I want to talk about is the cable tie points. You have total of 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 at the front, which is 9 total. Now this cutout over here, which is meant for you to place your motherboard and to place things like the support brackets at the back. Now you have one big piece over here. This is meant for you to place a Argb or a fan hub if this does not provide in your case. At the bottom over here, right, you have 2 additional caddy, and these are removable, where you place your SSD 2.5-inch caddy. See, it's removable, and you can just lock it in place and to place back the thumb screw. Speaking about the cable management Velcro, right, you have total of 5, which you can see here. This is the 3 Velcro stripes which will be cabling over here. Another very fantastic design, which is actually an add-on surprise, is these 2 Velcro stripes. As you know that when you route cables, right, some of the cables might be dangling, you know, mid-air at your PSU or at your hard disk cage. They only have provided these stripes over here, I mean the Velcro stripes, so that you can channel all your cables which is reaching your front I/O, your USB cable or your audio cable from the back. Another good point is it comes with this back 3 brackets, 1, 2, 3. As you can see, the cables are tucked nicely. This is actually meant for your EPS cable to be routed to your motherboard at the other area. At the lower section here, this is where you place your 3.5-inch hard disks. There are two, or you can place two 2.5-inch hard disks. And this is removable, toolless design. And at the rear over here, right, this is where you place your PSU. Now, your PSU length should not go beyond 180. If you go beyond 180, right, there might be problem routing your cables like your 24-pin, your EPS, your SATA cable, and etc. So take note on this. Do not exceed more than 180. Now, one thing I like about this caddy here, right, in fact, is toolless. A lot of you wanted to remove this, right? Well, let me have listened to you. You can just leave up this lever here and to pull the whole caddy out. See, it's out. It's toolless. It's catched by this mechanism over here, and of course you can shift the location. So if you want to place it back, just align it back. Place it back, align it, and to push it in, and that's it. This is the front of the case itself. When you remove off this front bezel, do note there are no mesh filters behind this bezel, so that there are more air going through, and of course you'll be ushered with two 160mm fans. If you purchase a non-Argb case, then this will not be Argb. It will be just normal 160mm black fans. Now, the unique features of the front itself, right, you can take this whole cage out. As in, they are fastened by 6 thumb screws, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So by removing all these thumb screws itself, right, you can remove the whole fan out. Let me just show you. And the cage itself is pretty unique. It's very modular too. I will show you later. So as you can see, I can just remove this off. See? And why I say this is very modular, if you choose not to put two 160mm fans, right, and you wanted to put your own maybe SL fans, 140 or such, you can remove this fans off from these two stems over here, which I'm going to show you later how modular it is. Now, speaking of which, the front I/O itself, be it the top at the side, if you purchase a Argb, of course you have this Argb controller and the actual I/O, the front I/O controllers. Now, for those of you who have a non-Argb case itself, right, you can imagine that this is the actual the I/O itself. You can relocate the I/O from the top to the side by removing 2 screws. As I mentioned, imagine this is the actual front I/O. So by removing these 2 screws, right, you can just unplug this. See? You can just pull it out. Then at the side, same thing, 2 screws. The 2 I/Os are out and I've removed them. Now, as mentioned on your right, this is the Argb controller, which if you purchase a non-Argb case itself, right, this will not come with it. But you can buy this at additional cost. I would prefer you to actually buy the Argb version, in fact. I'll show you later why with this controller here. Now, this is the actual I/O, front I/O, where you have the Type-C, 2 USB Type-A, the combo jet for your microphone and for your headset, and this is the reset switch, and this is the power switch. Speaking of which, I will orientate you with the cables. These are the cables where you need to mount to your motherboard, and I'll start off with the first cable here. This is the power switch and the reset switch, which is meant for this two, the power switch and the reset switch. Next will be the audio cable, stated down here, audio, which is meant for your combo jet, which is for the headset and microphone. Next will be this 2 USB Type A port, which you will need to connect this. This is meant for your 3.0 connection to your motherboard. And last but not least, this is the Type C, where you have to plug this to your motherboard. Now, for those of you who have purchased the Argb version itself, right? I mean, this case itself, right? It comes with this Argb controller. And this controller itself, right, as you can see, these are the modes and the color for your fans. Now, something unique is you can separately, without using a software, to control the inner blade. This is actually the blade itself. You can switch the pattern, or you can switch the color. And this is meant for the ring. Okay, if you guys do not know what I'm talking about, on the left here, right, is controlling the blade, which is here. Then on the right is controlling the ring, which is here. This ring here, not the blade, the ring. And additionally, you will be given 2 USB Type A port. If your motherboard has an additional 3.2 plug, you can plug this in. So it gives you more USB plug. I've removed off 2 of the 160mm fans, as you can see here, leaving only the fan peeler on the cage itself. And if you choose to mount a 140mm fans, right, as you can see, this is too wide. What you can do, right, is to move these 2 peelers. And as mentioned, right, both peelers is actually fastened each with 3 thumb screws. So if you want to do 140mm, right, you just move the peeler to the inner hole over here, which is meant for 140mm fans. Same goes to this. Now, right now I'm showing only just 1 thumb screw. By right, you should be tightening up over here and over here, because there are also 3 holes over here, 3 holes over here, same like the top. So at this position, right, this is meant for 140mm fans. And if you want to mount 120, just go deeper in, which is the last one. See, this is meant for 120mm fans. So make sure that you fasten all the thumb screw before you mount the fan itself. And it's able to cater for 3 120mm fans and 3 140mm fans, not an issue. And if you want to place radiator, right, you can place a 360, a 240, or even a 280. I deliberately took this controller, or should I say the fan and Argb hub, from the case at the back, as I mentioned on my video. Now, there are lots of cables over here, and what is it connect to? I will show you how to connect these cables on this Argb or fan hub, but that will be part 2. Part 1, which is this. This is the Argb controller. If you purchase a Argb case, be it white or black, you will come with this Argb controller, whereby it controls, okay, let me just show you. I'm gonna take this original 160mm fan where it has the rim and the blade, I mean the Argb effects. Now this controller, right, what it does is, I mentioned before, this is for the rim. I mean these 2 buttons over here is for the rim, and this 2 button here is for the blade. Now, having a clear understanding, right, at this controller end, you have this cables over here. A lot of daunting cables, I understand. Now, if you want to add additional USB A port, make use of this cable here, plug it to your motherboard. If your motherboard have an additional 3.0 header, so when you plug this in, right, you can make use of this 2 port. Now, next will be the SATA cable. So what this does is, you connect this to your power supply, which I've standby. Plug this to your power supply, so that power will be provided to this controller. Now, next will be these 2 cables. One is male, one is female. For the female, right, this is to be plugged to your motherboard Argb 5V header, 3-pin. And why is this needed? If you do not want to make use of the effects on this controller itself, you can bypass it by pressing some buttons, which I'm going to show you later. Then you can use the motherboard Argb effects to control the fans and such. For this cable over here, which is the male cable, the 5V Argb, this is whereby whatever button you press over here, be it the rim or the blade, you will pass the command through this cable, and this is where you plug to your hub, which is located at the top of the case itself. So how do you actually plug this cable to this hub to supply the command off from your controller? So at the end of the hub itself, right, there is this 3 cables. This, I don't have to say it, you plug it to the SATA source of your PSU so that it will supply power to this hub. There are 2 more cables over here. Now, this is coming from the controller, the Argb controller that gives the command. So this is where you plug to the hub, where it passes the command to your hub, so that all your Argb effects that is sent from your Argb controller itself, right, whatever Argb fans or the Argb strips, you will get the command straight from the controller itself. So you just give all the commands. So there are total of 4 over here, and for the last cable on the hub itself, which is this is meant for you to connect to your motherboard PWM fan headers, so that whatever fans that you connect at the fan headers, right, it will follow the RPMs that you set on your motherboard itself. Now, the last point will be the fan itself. I'm going to take this as an illustration, as I can show you the rim and the blade. Now, on the fan cables, right, you have PWM, which control the RPM of the fan, and the Argb effects of the fan blade and the rim. So connect the PWM to the hub, so that you will, from your motherboard that gives the instruction, right, you will pass through this hub and to instruct the fan itself how much RPM is going to run, things like that. But for the illustration, I'm not going to plug this because it's going to be very noisy. Now, there's another cable, which is the Argb cable from the fan itself. So this is to be plugged to the hub. So once this connection are done, right, you can power up your PC, which right now I'm going to show you. I will power up my PSU. See, the Argb is lighted up. Now, as mentioned, by pressing this buttons over here, right, it controls the rim. Let me just show you. See, so these 2 buttons are meant for this, and for this buttons on your right is meant for your blade. Let me just show you. See, your blade is reacting. Okay. Now, if you do not want to use this controller and you want to use your motherboard Argb effects or utility, right, you can bypass. As I mentioned to you, this controller has a plug. Let's see, where's the plug? Has this plug to the motherboard header, the 5V Argb header. So to bypass this controller, all you need to do is to press on the C button, both C buttons, for 3 seconds, and this will light up white. Once you see this is white, right, it means that your motherboard will take control. See, it flashes white. Of course, right now I'm not plugged to the motherboard itself, so you went back to the original setting whereby it's taking instruction from the Argb controller itself. But if you have this cable as mentioned to you right earlier on, this cable plugged to the motherboard, this will not be back to rainbow colors. It will be like off. Then you will take instructions from your motherboard. And if you want to bring back from your motherboard to this controller itself, again, press on the C button, both of them, for 3 seconds. This will blink and you will resume back to the controller. Alright, I hope you guys have actually enjoyed what I've shared with you, and this is part 1 of the Lancool 216 case. Before I end, I'd like to thank Lian to have provided me this wonderful and fantastic case that I love to play with. I'll be doing part 2, which is the experience on fitting all my PC components in this case itself, and part 3 will be more on the thermal test, as in like the different the different location and directions of the fans itself and the AIOs and such. So for those of you who are actually new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.